In the market for a new phone, there's so many features and gadgets and catchphrases that manufacturers are throwing at you. How do you know what's what? How do you wade through all the spec sheets and arrive at a purchasing decision? The Android versus iPhone debate is always a hot one, and I often see people talk about how they're going to switch from one after having been on the other for years. Well, I'm going to help you decide how to choose, and we'll have a little conversation about iPhone versus Android, which actually has nothing to do with iOS or Android OS. Let's get into it. Phone buyers aren't monolithic. Some folks care about bells and whistles, while others want something which simply calls folk. For this shopping guide, we're going to take a look at the smartphone buying market, and I'll help you with those pant pocket personal PCs we're all lugging around these days. What are pants, you say? Well, they're those things we all used to wear prior to quarantine. Cameras seem to be one of the most important things people think about, and it used to be that you really needed to consider the quality of the camera on the back of the phone, even if you wanted great selfies. But today's software-based or computational photography camera tricks mated to higher pixel front-facing cameras mean that you can actually get some really Instagrammable pictures out of that front camera. So, what should you be looking for? A couple of things to start. I'm not gonna go into a whole photography session, but look for the camera with the lowest F number. You're going to see some which say f2.1 or f2.0 or even f1.8. What does that mean? The lower the number, theoretically, the better your front-facing camera will handle a broader range of lighting conditions. So you're covered when you're at the beach or in the club or at a birthday party indoors. And speaking of parties, if you see this icon in your front-facing camera's viewfinder, that means it will take wide-angle pictures, which are perfect for when your selfies become gelflings. Gelfies, or group selfie photos. Then there's night mode and wide angle for the rear cameras. Night mode has been a hot button item for a couple years now with the iPhone, Samsung's Galaxy S line, and Note models, and Google's Pixel phones battling it out for super low light shot supremacy. At this point, you don't have to pay top of the line only for a phone with solid night mode shots, because you can purchase older models of these phones which have night mode, like the Pixel 3a or S10e. But looking at your habits, how often are you taking pictures in these types of settings? Wide angle lenses are a great thing to have on a phone because they'll allow you to capture group photos without having to stand 30 feet back from the group. This is something you're clearly not going to use every day, but it is one of those things I place in the category of better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Now, storage. Let's talk about that. If you're going iPhone, then I'd say that if it is at all within your power or budget to do so, skip the 64 gigabyte models and start with 128 gigabytes, unless you are the type of person who takes little or no photos or videos and doesn't really use more than 5 apps. What many users don't often realize is that apps themselves can take up many tens of gigabytes of storage space. For example, just the system files on my iPhone 11 Pro Max take up almost 8 gigabytes of storage space. My iMessage tally of photos, videos, and attachments is taking up around 2 gigabytes of space, but I bet if I looked at my wife's phone, who uses text messaging much more than I do, that number is probably a few times that. Then I have around 30 gigabytes worth of apps on my phone. So, just a loose estimate, I'm looking at roughly 40 gigabytes used before I even take a video or a picture or download that cute picture of my niece or nephew that was text messaged to me. On Android, the choice is a little easier because in many cases you'll have the option of removable storage. So you can start off with 64 gigabytes, then buy a micro SD card, which has a 128 gigabyte capacity, And make sure you go into the settings menu and tell the phone to store all of your photos by default on removable storage. People have often asked me, which is easier, iPhone or Android? My answer is the one you're most familiar with. At the end of the day, we're not deciphering the Rosetta Stone. The people at these companies are trying to make their user experiences as unencumbered as possible. So I don't think any one operating system today is that far ahead of the other in terms of usability. They all have their quirks, and it really is about what you want. There are things I love about iOS, and there are things I love about Android OS. For example, one of my big complaints with iOS is that sharing to social is a pain. On Android, when I want to share something to social media, most phones give me multiple options for each platform right from the sharing menu. With Instagram, I can share directly to my feed or to my stories or to direct message. With iOS, I'm able only to share to my feed directly from the share menu. But with iOS, there's no comparison to its cross-device interoperability. For example, if you have a MacBook Air, an iPhone, and an Apple Watch, text messaging works seamlessly across all devices. You can read and respond to text messages easily from your laptop or from your watch, never having to touch your phone as long as you're signed into iCloud. Going back to Android, many people use Google's ecosystem of apps and services, and your interaction with those products, though it's gotten much better over the years on iOS, is still a smoother experience on Android. For example, on Android, if you want to share a photo in an email or on social, you'll have more options when it comes to accessing your Google Photos and Google Drive content that you just won't have on iOS. If you're a heavy Google products user, the experience on Android is definitely more robust. And let's talk wearables for a second. What's on your wrist? Are you a smartwatch consumer? That can make the difference. In my case, my favorite phone was the Galaxy Note, but I actually switched to iPhone because of the Apple Watch. After having reviewed myriad smartwatches and observing how Google was handling Wear OS, I still hadn't yet tried the Apple Watch. I jumped in on the Series 3 as a review and fell in love with it and went out and bought my own. For me, the integration was enough to make me switch. Well, that, and it was at the time that Apple actually finally introduced a form factor which closely enough resembled my beloved Notes in the iPhone X. The combination of losing those massive bezels and using the Apple Watch was the tipping point. I already owned an iPad and MacBook Pro. Among my favorite Android watches and my wife's choice of wearable is Samsung's Galaxy Gear line. But to get the most out of that watch, you're going to want to go with the Samsung phone. You can absolutely use it with other Android devices and iOS by downloading Samsung's Gear Manager software, but for access to the full feature set of the watch and accompanying software, much like Apple, you're going to need to keep it Samsung products all down the line. Last but not least, how often do you think about accessories before you buy a phone? Do you start looking at cases prior to purchase? I reviewed a wonderful entry-level phone recently that I can recommend for the phone itself, but there's a problem. There are no aftermarket accessories for it. Sure, it comes with a clear case in the box, but if you're after something more to personalize it, you're going to be out of luck. And the reality is there may or may not be a market for accessories for that phone, depending on how well it actually sells. A phone could be the most amazing phone in the world, but if very few people have heard of it, chances are it won't have much in the way of accessories to customize and make it your own. And I know that is actually important to a lot of people. Now, if the phone you're looking to buy isn't on the market yet, you generally won't see that many accessories, but you can go on history if it's just a newer model in a line of phones. So if you're looking at the LG Velvet, for example, look at previous LG phones and see what the aftermarket accessory availability has been like. Are there plenty of options for the LG G8X ThinQ? So let's wrap up this shopper's guide and bullet point these tips for you. starting at 128 gigabytes or more when you're selecting your phone for its storage options. If you're looking at 2 or 3 different phones and you love social media and get-togethers, look for front-facing cameras with lower F numbers and rear cameras with a wide-angle option and night mode. Do you rock a watch? Are you considering buying one in the very near future or at the time of purchase? Look at which watch goes best with which phone. Are there any accessories available for the phone you want? Look before you buy. And those are some of the questions I get asked most, some of the things I see most online when people are talking about buying a new phone. If you have any other questions about purchasing a new phone that I didn't address in this guide, please leave them in the comments below. I will get to them, happy to answer them. My name is Tshaka Armstrong. We thank you for watching. If you have any questions about rate plans or any of the things that are on the peripheral of purchasing the actual phone itself, check out reviews.org. We have plenty of information there for you along those lines. Thank you for watching.